In this lesson, I'm going to teach you guys how to clone your favorite plants, whether they be citrus, geraniums, pomegranates, grapes, and so much more. What I'm also going to be demonstrating is what are the best cloning products to use. There's a lot of lessons out there that talk about the value of using honey and others cinnamon, and obviously there's a lot of rooting hormones out on the market as well. For the first time ever, I'm actually going to be sharing, and I've got these 3 gigantic tubs so I can do at least 20 or 30 examples of each using different plants. So in about 30 days, I'm going to share a publication in the video description below with a link that'll take you to our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and other social media sites where I'm going to be sharing on those other platforms a couple of days before we share here on the YouTube channel the results of what are the best products for stimulating root development in your cuttings. Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants and author of Saving the World with the Home Garden. And many of you have been watching my propagation techniques over the years, and one of my favorite ways, especially if you've got just a couple of plants you're trying to propagate, and one of the main lessons I like teaching are propagating figs, which we typically discuss in February when we do the annual free fig cutting giveaway. And be on the lookout for those of you that are watching this for the first time, and mark your calendars because they go really fast, especially our most popular and rare varieties of figs, which we collect from gardens from across America. And you can see some of the links in the video description below with our last couple of free fig cutting giveaways, so you get a better example of what that was about. But we're also going to be demonstrating, I've even saved some fig cuttings from late January and even early February that were sealed in plastic bags with some moisture in a dark, cold corner of my garage. I'm going to share with you what they look like today, and we're going to see if we can revive them. So again, keep in mind, from mid-January, early February, and now all of February is past, March, April, May, and here we are now in the first week of June. It's been 5 months, and I feel very confident I'm going to be able to successfully root most of these fig cuttings, even after all this time has passed. And we're also then going to collect some fresh fig cuttings as well from our property, and I'm going to demonstrate that as well to you and how I collect those fresh cuttings to result in the best and highest success rates. With the lessons I've demonstrated in the past, we typically start off with cups. And again, when it's just a few cuttings, this is such an easy method and technique, and I still like it, but I'm going to try to do something that's even going to be a little bit more successful, and I'll explain to you why in just a minute, using these tubs here behind me. But what I've always demonstrated is that you're going to simply start off with a plastic cup like so. I always prefer the clear cup so you can watch the rooting process when you finally accomplish success. And all I'm doing is adding some drain holes so that when you add water, as we've got here in this bottle, you can see that once you add water, the water quickly passes through. The goal is to use your second cup to capture that moisture. And the goal is, when watering your plants, is you're simply going to take your capture cup, and when you go to water, and you're going to have to come in a little closer to capture this, you're going to see the water go down. And this is the trick now. As the water goes down our potting media, which we're going to talk about the soil media of choice that we use. So the goal is to target probably right around there, which is the bottom 10-15%. The goal is the cutting is going to be sitting in the soil media right above that zone. The moisture is going to hit the media and then wick its way up, and the roots are going to also want to be encouraged to come into that moisture zone. Right now you can see that the water level is right up here. So now it's already a little bit too high, and it's probably still working its way even higher. So we're going to probably have to come back and then drain some of that moisture out, and just basically simply keep on monitoring the fact that you want to keep the water level near the bottom. You don't want it to go too high, because that means you're basically flooding the soil media, which is going to result in rot, and you're basically going to kill the entire rooting structure system. And even if it successfully roots, you're going to start killing the plant. If it's too low, then the soil media is going to dry out, and again, that's going to affect the success of your plants. And now, instead of the cup and cup method, we're going to simply put the cup with the perforations at the bottom to allow for drainage now within the container, like so. And this is going to be a lot easier to regulate once we have all of these cups with our cuttings alongside one another, and just to simply regulate the water level to that bottom 10-15% mark, and that's gonna allow the plant to simply wick up the water, and we're gonna be able to control all of these cuttings all at the same time. I'm pulling this out of this one here is labeled as the hormone container, and this one was rooted by way of hormone, and I wanna share with you the results here as well, and you can take a look. And what we're gonna do towards the end is we're gonna up pot it. You can see the reason I like the clear cup is you can see the rooting success as that's happened. And this one here is a passion fruit cutting, and it's ready to be up potted, and I'm gonna demonstrate some helpful tips on up potting towards the end. So the first thing we're gonna do is prepare the soil medium, and what we're gonna use is perlite and vermiculite. They're both organic certified, but they're inorganic in the sense that they are mineral based instead of derived from a living organic source, such as a plant or manure or leaf mold or any of those things. As you take a look here at perlite, we're gonna open it up. It basically looks like snow, and you can see how coarse it is. It's kind of got some big chunks and some small chunks, and take a look at the label, like what it's ideal for. It improves drainage in your potting and aeration in your potting soils, helps prevent soil compaction, promotes strong root development, used with a potting mix or garden soil. The other product I'm going to mix it with is vermiculite, which is usually a lot finer than perlite. We can open it here, and you can see that it's basically, they're both mineral source. A lot of heat's been added to it, so like it's basically a rock that then was puffed into popcorn. And again, it absorbs water, but not excessive moisture. And if you take a look here, professional for faster seed germination, very great for the smallest seeds such as lettuce, proper aeration for superior root growth, mixed 50-50 with use in hydroponic and ebb flow system, excellent for seeds and starting and improving moisture and nutrient retention. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna create a 50-50 using the perlite product with the vermiculite product. The perlite is simply a little more coarse and vermiculite a little more fine to fill in those coarse areas within the potting soil mix that we're going to create to then fill up those cups behind me before we start inserting cuttings from all over the garden. And now we're going to simply mix the two products together. It's probably a little closer to about 60% perlite and 40% vermiculite, but I'm okay with that. Our goal in today's lesson is to simply dip our cuttings into 3 different products: honey, cinnamon, and then we're using a rooting hormone. Specifically in this example, we're using CloneX. With all 3 of the products, the general concept with using a rooting dip, whether again it be honey, cinnamon, or the CloneX or any rooting hormone product, the number one function is to basically serve as an antibacterial, antifungal benefit, so that your cutting, which is now basically a dead piece of the structure of that plant, doesn't rot and doesn't die. The goal is to keep it hydrated, the humidity level elevated, while hopefully that plant begins to push root and shoot with new leaves, and then you end up with a clone of that parent plant structure. The goal again with that cinnamon and honey is they both are antifungal, antibacterial properties, but exactly what elements are in there that help stimulate root development is probably less significant compared to the antifungal, antibacterial. CloneX also has ingredients that are antifungal, antibacterial, in addition to rooting hormone stimulants. So my guess, my hypothesis would be that CloneX would actually be a little bit more effective as it's got rooting hormone in there and not just the inhibitors against bacteria and fungal growth. By using the perlite and vermiculite mix, we're hoping that we also further eliminate the bacterial and fungal contamination that may contribute to the rotting of your cuttings. That's why we're starting off with a cleaner media. In about 3 to 6 weeks, once our cuttings root, we'll then up pot them into, or even put them directly into the ground, where they'll then get those organic supplements in addition to organic fertilizers to help continuously support additional growth. So if you have any containers from your last plantings on your property, this is an opportunity to reuse them. If you've also got in your trash various containers, you can use those too. I would say it's going to be probably challenging and difficult to use glass, as the goal is you're going to want some holes at the bottom so that when you water the bottom of your containers that they're gonna rest in, that they're able to absorb the water from the base. And so glass is probably not gonna work, and it can, if you were to cut into it and open that top, it might be a little bit too sharp and hard to work with. But basically any of these other plastics will work very easily. And so I'm gonna start off with those, and then for the sake of the experiment, I'm simply gonna be relying on the clear plastic cups, and we're gonna be able to visually see the rooting happening through the clear plastic. And I'm sharing the results with you in 30 days. So be on the lookout for that. And now let's enjoy preparing some cuttings together. And I'm gonna share with you some insight into regards to selecting the best cuttings for optimal rooting success. So here we are now with a container full of the vermiculite perlite in our cups. This one here is labeled cinnamon. All of this is gonna be dipped in cinnamon powder. These are gonna be dipped in honey. And the one on the right is gonna be using a hormone to stimulate root development of all of these soon-to-be cuttings within their cup containers. And now, let's go and collect our cuttings. Follow me. So every year we've got these passion fruits that catch onto our light structure that basically lights our courtyard. All of these extra branches that come too close to our heads are always cut, but not always turned into cuttings. What we're gonna do now is I'm simply gonna cut it away from our head, like so. And keep in mind, these are the same passion fruit cuttings I grew when I was living in Florida over 10 years ago. They made their ways to A Million Drops, which is a homeless shelter, which caught onto a chain link fence. Several of these cutting vines generating hundreds of passion fruit annually. And we've been using this for our annual also passion fruit cutting giveaway that we've done in years past. We don't have a date scheduled for this year, but just gonna share with you how easy if you can get your hands on some passion fruit cuttings, we can make some more passion fruits. Follow me. So now we're gonna propagate our cuttings of our passion fruit vine for rooting success. Many people will say the longer the cutting, the better, but that's not true. If it roots down here, it's gonna have to support all of these leaves and structure, and it's gonna be a lot of burden and a lot of stress to the plant. A good length is about 3 to 5 nodes, which might be somewhere under 6 inches and maybe even closer to about 4 inches. What we're gonna do is we're gonna be using the tips and the below part as well, as I've pretty much equally have rooted tips, and we're gonna talk about tips later, but I've been able to successfully root tips as well as the lower part of the structure, just about equally successful. So the first thing I'm gonna do is take off the vines, as that is going to consume resources that are not necessary. In addition to, these are all the baby blooms, which would have generated the fruit. Again, we've got tons of passion fruit vine remaining, and this here is just going to create the next generation that we're going to get to share with family and friends. What we're going to do again is we're removing the tendrils, which are the vines. We're now going to start cutting the leaves in half to help reduce desiccation by about in half. And then for the parts that are going to go into the soil, we're just basically cutting off the leaves and any flowers or vines on those last couple of nodes. And then we're going to cut at an angle at the last node. And the node is typically where the roots are gonna come out. So we're simply gonna score it to help increase moisture absorption and exposure to whatever we're gonna use to hopefully stimulate the roots. And what we're gonna do now is simply take a cutting and dip it into the CloneX. And then it's gonna go into one of these containers like so. It's gonna help ease its way into there. And that's our first cutting. We can insert several into a single container. And here we go. That's 2. One thing to also keep in mind is that the leaves, and I'm giving you a little bit of biology here, produce the auxins. Auxins help stimulate root development. So that's another reason for keeping some leaves on the structure. And then the cytokinins is another hormone that's found in the roots. And the cytokinins help generate basically shoot and leaf development. So that's kind of the biology of the hormones that are within the plant structure. I'm now going to take my water. We're going to add a little bit of moisture immediately, but we're going to thoroughly water everything towards the end. I just want to make sure that these guys get a little bit of a drink so they don't stress out. And now let's go and collect some fresh fig cuttings. Follow me. So here we are now with the 10-in-1 fig tree that we've created on the property about 5, 6, 7 years ago. and you can see it's doing quite well. This one over here is the Chicago Hardy, as you can see, with the Breba crop that's coming off of last year's brown wood, as you can see. And then the new growth is creating the main crop of figs, which is usually the better tasting fig variety. So main crop, and then the Breba crop is the early crop. Looks like we're about a week or two away actually from enjoying the first of the Chicago Hardy figs. And here we are in June. Over here, we've got the Strawberry Vert and the Greenish. And the one I'm gonna want to propagate is this one over here, known as the Tiger Panache. As you can see, it's a beautiful fig here. Green fig with yellow stripes. And even the wood is variegated as well. And what I'm gonna do is simply take a cutting off of this branch that's growing in the wrong direction, and let's go and take it to our workstation. I'm simply pruning it right above one of the leaf nodes so it can basically push out another shoot right above that node. So I'm cutting it about 1/4 inch above the node at a 45-degree angle, so any moisture that accumulates can run right off. And now we've got this Tiger variegated variety fig. Check out that bark again. Look at how beautiful that looks. I'm sure we've got some figs, but we still got about 10 more branches behind me, but we're gonna use this for our cutting demonstration. Let's get back to our station. So when it comes to preparing figs during the growing season, it's always advisable to use last year's wood as preferred over this year's wood, as this is going to desiccate, dry out a lot faster than using the hardy wood from last year. And you can see the line between last year and this year right there, as identified by the green growth, which will probably in the upcoming few months start turning brown as it hardens. But this is all of the growth from this growing season, and this is all of the growth from the last growing season. We're simply going to use this wood. You can see we've got some nice bud wood as well. It's not necessary, and we're just basically going down to the next node, which is where the roots are going to come from, right there. We're going to scar it like so, and we're going to start off with the CloneX as the for the hormone bucket. And let's get the container ready like so, and we're going to label this one Tiger, representing the Tiger Panache fig. And we'll dip it and spray it. And now we'll repeat the process for honey. And then this here is going to be the bottom, and we'll dip it and we'll give it its first drink of water. When selecting a cutting from your citrus, you're basically looking for some healthy, vigorous wood that's grown within the last 3 to 6 months. So you can see while I'm going through this here, I'm simply collecting these branches like so. What I'm avoiding, if you want to take a look, this one here is my Lisbon lemon tree. This is new growth. You wouldn't want to prune typically the tender young growth. You'd want to start from about this point down and basically collect more of the vigorous wood that's grown again within the last anywhere from about 3 to about 6 months. You can even go back to about a year, but I wouldn't go past 2 years, as that wood is a little bit too mature and too hardy. For the geraniums, both the tips and the stems work out just great. All we're going to do here is remove the flowers. Again, we're going to cut those leaves in half. 1. So this here is the Parfianca pomegranate grown in the espalier fashion. It's about 2.5 to 3 feet wide, and there's 3 varieties of pomegranates that span about 20 feet. And what we're going to do is we're going to use now this wood for cutting as well. The Parfianca pomegranate is considered a seedless variety, even though in fact it's got a very small soft seed, and is one of the world's best tasting pomegranate varieties. When dealing with pomegranate cuttings in the fall, late winter, early winter, you're dealing with hardy wood. But now that it's the growing season, here we are in June, you've got a lot of new growth. I like going back to where it's still woody, as we did with the fig cuttings. As you can see, this is all of last year's wood and even the year before wood. I want to kind of get to the point where it's more lignified. And so we're going to use this harder wood over here. And now we're preparing the cutting. We're leaving a few leaves, as the leaves again create the auxins that are going to help stimulate root development, even though the majority of these leaves will fall off in the upcoming week or two. And here, cutting number 1. So in addition to the Parfionca pomegranates made available by Dave Wilson Nursery, in addition to the Eversweet, which is a white variety of pomegranate, non-staining, super sweet, also considered a seedless variety as it's got a very soft edible seed. And then the Wonderful, which is the most popular store-bought pomegranate variety. All of them are generated at Dave Wilson Nursery by way of cutting. So if you get any growth from sucker growth from the root, you know that it's genetically identical to the above ground parent plant. This variety of rose, which you may have seen throughout the last few videos, is known as the Purple Splash variety. Coming a little closer so you can see just how beautiful these roses are, as they're purple roses and it looks like they've been splashed with white paint. Beautiful yellow centers, slightly fragrant, kind of an apple rose scent. What we're going to be doing is deadheading. So you see all of these spent roses. By deadheading, the entire plant structure is going to look a lot better. But we're also going to go in and take out some of these stragglers as well. So even though there might be some new buds, such as this one that could have been left, we're going to be collecting some wood for cuttings as well. So when preparing your rose cuttings, even if they're fresh cut roses from your local florist, what you're going to end up doing is simply going down to the nearest node, and you're going to want to, again, just cut about 1/4 inch away from that last node, remove the last couple of leaves, like so. And now we're basically going to prune the leaves like so. You can either leave a double lobe or a single lobe. We're going to leave two pairs right there, and we're going to prune like so. This here will be cutting number 1. When we go to up pot, we're going to be handling these plants, so I'm actually removing the thorns as well, so it'll make it easier to handle. And this here will be cutting number 1. So even mint, again, we're just going to strip the leaves off, keep the last few on the tips. We're going to score the tips, as we've done for all of our other cuttings. I'm just going to dip that. For a lot of you watching this, you know when it comes to mint, one of the easiest ways of propagating mint, because it has runners, is to simply pull some of the runners out from below the ground. Check this out, you just simply pull on a couple of stems and you've already got roots. This would be an even better starter plant, and I would simply just prune it like so. And this would be a perfect cutting. And you've got more sweet mint, depending on the variety of mint. This one here's a sweet mint, and now I've got genetically identical, more sweet mint to plant. So we've just created over 100 cuttings, from fruit trees to color spots to herbs. And the list continues in regards to what's possible in regards to by way of cloning and propagating more plants on your property. What we're going to do next, and you can imagine if we did the cup and cup method for this many plants, it's going to be and require a lot of time, energy, and effort. Because of this tub and cup method, as I'm going to call it, you're going to be able to control the water line a lot easier and being able to regulate and maintain humidity much easier than if you're doing the cup and cup method. So with the cup and tub method, what we're going to do is we're going to water, especially on this first day, from the top, as you can see here, and we're simply going to soak the plants and what we're looking to achieve is a water line that's only covering the bottom 10 to 15% of the cups. And right now, most of the water that's going in is being absorbed by the soil mixture of vermiculite perlite. I'm just gonna keep on going from tub to tub until I see that water line starting to go up. And we're gonna continuously monitor the progress daily, weekly, and I'll have the monthly update the first week of July of 2023. The results will be posted in the link in the video description, as well as the comment section below, as well as you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. My personal favorite for communicating is on Instagram. And again, I'm putting the links to all of those in the video description below. All of the water at the bottom of the tub is being wicked up by the perlite vermiculite mixture and is giving sufficient humidity to each of the cuttings and encouraging the root development to come down. This is one of the best ways to root plants. And again, I'm going to be visiting my plants at least once a day and up to 3 times a day to add some additional foliar spray, just using water to maintain higher levels of humidity upon those leaves and just to keep those cuttings hydrated as well as possible. The last thing I'm going to do on the first day is I'm going to apply the Eyal Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard Protection from damaging sunburn, insects, and rodents. This product also works as an anti-transplant and helps with transplant shock. The fact that we've cut all of these plants is a shock to the plant, and by whitewashing them, this is an organic formulation consisting of limestone, mica, which is clay, and milk proteins, among other ingredients, which include cinnamon, castor, and clove, which help repel a lot of insects and rodents from your plants as well. And we're simply going to spray it to the leaves, and it's going to help, again, as a transplant shock. Not that we're transplanting it, but it's going to help with the shock. So you can see that when we spray it, we're simply whitewashing the leaves. There's obviously, the Eyal Organics also has a brush-on application as well for your larger trees. But you can see that the leaves are all being now coated, again, with limestone, mica, which is clay, in addition to diatomaceous earth and other ingredients. As there's new growth, you can continuously protect it from weather extremes, wind, in addition to keeping it insect and rodent repellent proof as well. We're going to continuously spray the other plants as well. And when we up pot it, we're going to spray them again. The last thing I want to share with you is you can create your own foliar spray using the pint-sized can. The pint-sized can makes a can of brush-on solution, but it can also be diluted to make up to 5 gallons of foliar spray. So depending on your application, if you're going to use it as a spray versus a brush-on application. And then the last thing is, when it comes to feeding your plants, the Eyal Organics all-purpose fertilizers give your plants all 6 plant macronutrients. Most fertilizers only focus on NPK, which are 3 macronutrients, but the Eyal Organics all-purpose give you all 6, which include nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, sulfur, and calcium. 6 macronutrients that should be in the soil in abundance in order for optimal plant health, growth, performance, and success. You won't begin fertilizing your plants until they begin rooting, so wait at least 3 to 6 weeks before you start integrating fertilizer into your plant care program. So we're now going to put the plants beneath my gazebo in a position that gets good, sufficient morning light and afternoon shade. And this is where they're going to remain for the next few weeks as we monitor the root growth and development. So be on the lookout the first week of July for the results of this cloning experiment with the CloneX versus honey and cinnamon cutting experiment. If you found this lesson informative and educational, be sure to give us that thumbs up, share us with your gardening friends and family. And for those of you that are new to the Eyal Organics platform, welcome, and take a second to subscribe and hit that push bell notification to stay connected to all of our educational lessons as soon as they become made available. Eyal Organics is excited to share that we have grown to become America's leading garden product YouTube channel thanks to your support by taking that second to subscribe and join our growing journey. As always, keep growing with Eyal Organics, and wishing you all happy gardening.